Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whatever time you're watching this. So if you're streaming this live, my name is Chuck Nix, the Bearded Wino, and welcome to another Monday Meditations with Wine. Today is a really special day because I'm bringing one of my homies into it. This is one of the people that has been with me probably since the beginning of my wine journey in Mississippi. She's based out of Starkville. She's incredibly esteemed, and she's been doing amazing things there. And for the whole state of Mississippi, she's been representing very, very strongly. You may know her on Instagram as the Pinup Song. She rocks some of the dopest Marilyn Monroe-esque dresses, and she represents with lots of really quality captions and really intuitive thoughtfulness into the things that she puts up. So it's not just like a bunch of tags on wine that you might find in grocery stores. She's got some serious knowledge behind her, and there's definitely more than meets the eye when it comes to Bobbie Burgess. So we're going to meet her in just a second. But let's just go through a couple of things. Hey, for everyone that joined me for the Skernick dinner on Monday, the 28th, thank you so much. We had a great time. It was a very fun dinner. All of our out-of-town guests from New York and Georgia, they really were impressed by the way you showed up and showed out Mississippi. So cheers to you. And for those of y'all who are looking for the next event at Bravo, we do still have the Mezcal dinner coming up in April. And there will be another event that happens sometime soon. So just stay tuned at bravobuzz.com for any updates on that. As always, please comment, make sure you say what you got to say in the comment section when you're watching this on Facebook Live. And if you missed the live, it's okay. We'll have this replayed on Instagram where we can. It will replay also on Bravo's Facebook page, as well my Facebook page, Chuck Nix or Bearded Wino when you're searching. And if you are driving and you don't want to be watching the video, then you can absolutely find the replay of this audio and this interview, as all interviews from Monday Meditations with Wine, at the Last Call with Bearded Wino podcast, available on Apple and Spotify. Remember, just search in Bearded Wino on any platform and wherever you're searching it, and you should be able to find what you're looking for, and we'll get it going. So look, I've been talking to you about Bobbie. We go way back a few years, actually. And we're going to get her in here now. We're going to talk a little bit about what she has going on now and in the future. Bobbie, what's up?
Hello, how are you?
I am fantastic. I'm fantastic. So look, people don't know a lot of times how hectic our lives are. I know this is Monday Meditations, but we've got things that we're doing on Monday. So we're recording this on a Sunday. So how's your Sunday been?
It's been good. It's my one day off this week, so it's kind of my mental health day, as you can tell by my famous mental health or my emotional support sweater and my very messy hair. So, I like to keep it real, even when I do things like these. If it's a day off, I want people to see like what it is actually like in our lives,
Hey, look, that's, I think the big point of this is so we can show people that there's more to us than just the dress or the sport coat that they see on the dining room floor or at wine events, which you do a lot of and we'll talk about. But I mean, it's really important that they get to see, one, that we're real people, and two, that there's real lives. But that also there's another side of this, right? Like all the work that we put in studying in the books, this is what it looks like. You know what I mean? It's not just the big, boardrooms or conference rooms where we're all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had a fun weekend. You did some events this weekend, didn't you?
Yes. Now that I've started this whole catering position, I was really just training this week, learning how they set up events, working a few, like serving a few of them just to see kind of how that goes. And yeah, it was really interesting. It's much different than being in a restaurant, but in a good way. You don't slow down. We did a 364 person plated dinner.
So, and that's all at once. Like I go through about 300 people walking in the door over the course of 6 to 8 hours. You're doing 300 at one time.
Yeah, we did one time, and it was wild.
You're a superwoman, Bobbie. Has anybody ever told you that?
Don't feel like it today, but thank you for saying it. But the thing is like it went so smooth. Like, I mean, these people, Brian Michaels Catering, they've been in business forever, and they built an empire, a well-oiled machine. I've never seen an event go so smooth in my life.
And you're the catering director for Brian Michaels, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're owning your space, man, and we're really proud of what you're doing. Mississippi's really proud of what you're doing. We're going to talk just a bit about how far your reach is. But before we do that, that's what I thought. I thought there was something that you were drinking. So tell us what we're drinking today.
So I am drinking Piper Sonoma.
Okay.
Blanc de Blanc.
Yeah.
It is a sparkling wine from Sonoma. In the Folio Fine Wine portfolio.
Great portfolio.
Love them. Philippe actually introduced me to this wine when I had reached out to him about pushing Charles Heidsick and Piper Heidsick and all those in Mississippi, which, we all did that big call.
Yeah.
And we actually did an uncorked with Charles Heidsick. So this is Piper Sonoma. As the name would kind of say, it is owned or was originally owned by the Piper Heidsick family.
That's right. And this is their Sonoma vineyard sites and their Sonoma Winery, their California space, where they're making awesome sparkling wine in traditional method like they would in France. Fantastic. I know it's delicious. I know it is. All right. So here we go. I saw you were on some bubbles. So I'm gonna keep it France, right? So I'm on La Pierre Morgan. Oh, you see it. You can't even see the label. Look at that. You can't see it's such a pristine label. You can't see it. All right, so that says Morgan in cursive for those that can't see that. So Morgan is a cru, one of the 10 crus in Beaujolais, South Burgundy. It is Gamay. I'm not talking to Bobbie. I'm talking to y'all watching because she knows this stuff. But so it's a Gamay grape. It's made in Beaujolais. It's one of the 10 crus. So this is some of the best stuff that Beaujolais has to offer. La Pierre, this is allocated in the state of Mississippi. So this is some pretty cool stuff. I was happy to get it. I know it's only a 2020 vintage, but I mean, a lot of those Beaujolais crus, they're 3 to 5 years on max aging. So get it and drink it and love it and talk about it and tell your friends and drink it with a friend as well. Awesome, man. So we got some good stuff in the glass. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Happy Sunday. Bingo. Way to recharge. All right, Bobbie. Let's talk about it. Me and you have been cool. We met in 2018 when I first moved to Mississippi. We started that tasting group, and then we were like every week, getting ready for our exams that we all passed. Cheers to you. Cheers to us. So how long have you exactly been in wine?
I started studying wine 2016, or I thought I wanted to study wine. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I dropped out my last semester of college as a social worker because, well, frankly, I was making more money bartending. So it was like, why am I going to waste, $10,000 more in education? And once you actually to do anything with social work, you got to get a master's. So I'm looking at the financials and I'm like, this just doesn't add up to me. So ended up changing, trying to decide what I wanted to do. So probably 2016. And then I went to I stopped studying for a year and focused on my mental health. Went to an outpatient sexual trauma rehabilitation center. So I didn't drink or do anything for an entire year. It was just really like relearning how to process emotions and all of that stuff. So for an entire year, I didn't do anything other than, serve tables in a restaurant. I quit bartending. I quit doing anything just to keep me away from any substance, which I have a substance problem. I had a trauma problem, but I wanted to make sure that I was focusing and putting my time and effort into the sexual trauma rehabilitation program, which meant just, not touching anything that could alter my, mental state. So I didn't study for a year. And then I guess I hopped back on it in 2018. And that's when I started really studying. So.
Man, Bobbie, this is one of the most endearing things about you because I think that you have a way of turning vulnerability into strength and empowering yourself and others, and they're inspired by you. And I'm talking about myself specifically, who gets inspired, certainly by hearing your story. Not for nothing. I think that if anybody's paying attention on social media and they're actually reading the captions and not just double tapping, they get to see that there's some depth there. I remember when we were all at Texon last year, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were all in that room, in that conference room, and then the topic of imposter syndrome came up, and mental health came up, and people were talking about depression and anxiety. Those are things that I've experienced, right? And then you were talking about the trauma that you had gone through. It means something when somebody can stand up for it. What is that like for you? I know you've gone through a lot, but can you talk a little bit about the first time that you actually spoke out in public about the things that you'd gone through?
So yeah, I think I kept a lot of it hidden for a really long time. Like those closest around me knew a bunch of the things that I had been through. I always talked about being adopted. I always talked about, I was very open in 2018, 2019 with talking about my rape, but and that happened in college, which, I've actually had a few rough days, and my fiance David was like, why are you upset? He looked at me today and he's like, why do you look so sad? And I couldn't figure it out, and I got on Facebook, and if you get off here later and go look, I had reposted something, which is when I was still keeping it all very private. It was like I would tiptoe around what I had been through. And so 2 days from now will be the anniversary of my rape and the anniversary of the first time I tried to end my own life. So trauma remembers, and it repeats itself. So every year I get mentally tanked, which is why today is like messy hair, took a bubble bath. Like I'm focusing on me, because every year I'm like, why do I feel this way? And then I go back and I start to look at my Facebook memories. And I'm like, this is what happened. This is why I'm feeling this way. But so that's when I really started speaking out about that. And then when it came to surviving child sex trafficking, that was actually my sister. I was on an Instagram Live with Dan. And I remember we were having this great talk, this great chat, and I get off and I have all these messages coming in, and I have all these people, telling me how sorry they are and like about what I went through. And my sister had come out about what happened when we were kids, and we all agreed that we would do it together when we had all agreed on a time to do it. Now, one of my sisters did not agree to her talking about this. None of us knew about it, but it ended up being the best thing for me. I remember just crying that whole night, like so embarrassed that people knew what I had been through, but then feeling really like relieved by the amount of support I had in the wine industry and people reaching out that I was okay, because it's something I hadn't talked about ever. So her kind of just bombarding it kind of made me have to like look it in the face and deal with it. So that only happened maybe last year or year before last. So 2 years ago is when I started talking about all of that trauma. But so many people have been through the same things.
Bobbie, every time you talk about these things, this kind of happened when we were all talking about it in Dallas. Your story is so heavy. The strength that you exhibit by being vocal about it, because so many women, I think, internalize it. They try to deal with those challenges inside, which is not healthy. If anyone's gone through therapy, your therapist will tell you this is not healthy to just hold it in. And I think that's pretty clear. And you have done one of the most healthy things by talking about it. But also not just talking about it with just a therapist, but maybe like giving it to the world and getting the support that's already out there. There's a lot of people that would support, people that have been through trauma or that are going through some mental challenges. They just have to know about it. What I can't fathom, like, so talking about it outright. Was there a moment when you were like, I can't talk about this, or did you have some fear about coming out about all this?
Yeah, has always been one of the hardest parts, especially relationship wise, was how do I bring that up? The last few people I dated, I just out the gate, I was like, this is what I've been through, this is who I am. If you can't handle that, then like that's fine. But there are days when I'm like, I just don't want to talk about it. Like I just want to shut it off. I just want to be a person. Like I just want to be normal. for once. And I'm just now getting to this sense of normalcy, which a lot of it has to do with my relationship. Being someone that didn't have a family, like I have a sister that I'm still really close to, a brother, but I'm kind of adjacent to a lot of them, and our adopted family has nothing to do with us. And that was kind of had some abusive aspects in it as well. So I get to see like all the big picture of childhood trauma, foster care trauma, orphanage, all that trauma, and then going to college and being traumatized again. So, I have a lot of baggage. And sometimes, I've never wanted anybody to feel bad for me. I've worked very hard to get where I am, and I've never wanted to be handed anything because of my experiences or because people felt bad for me. So I always tried to keep it in and say as little as possible because I didn't want to be handed a free ride. Like I worked really hard. I've been working in restaurants since I was 14. When I was 21, I still worked just to try to keep electricity on. And half the time I didn't have electricity, and I took cold showers most of my early 20s, because.
Wow. I know that some of these things were once upon a time incredibly difficult for you to talk about. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us about it today, because you have a voice that really does speak volumes to the millions of people that have experienced childhood trauma, sex trauma, mental challenges, mental health challenges. You speak volumes, and you do it with such strength. Like, I'm listening to you now, Bobbie, and I know we've had some really tough conversations in the past, in the middle of the night, like really tough conversations where you were going through some things. And I just felt, the energy through the phone lines and such. And I mean, listening to you now, I just think about, that journey, what it's like, coming from that space into now, and how powerful it is for someone to hear. And I really hope someone is helped by talking about it. There's so much more to talk about that. And you mentioned not getting a free ride. Let's be clear, Bobbie, when I first met you, the way I was introduced to you before you got there, they were like, Bobbie's going to come, get ready. The girl is no joke. And like, you came with this like crystal clear palette. You came with this really sharp and instant recall and knowledge in our wine studies. And you would have never thought that you had been through anything, because I think so often we kind of type people that have gone through mental health challenges or any kind of trauma as, messed up in the head, and they can't process their thoughts. Mm-hmm. And look at where you are. Like, you're just as sharp as ever. Speaking of where you are, how much have you accomplished, right? In the state of Mississippi, us as beverage professionals, we're here. We're, make sure we're there. But what you've done is pretty commendable. You are quartermaster sommelier certified specialist of wine, Society of Wine Educators. You are a wine educator to many people in the state. Let's see, you're a speaker, a very powerful speaker. And I missed your last panel in Texon, but that's all right. I won't miss the next one. Are you going back this year?
Hopefully they invite me back. It was actually really funny. I was sitting up there, and Eric and Eric, both Erics, were like each other, and they were like, she looks like she's gonna vomit. But they said as soon as I started talking, like, it was on. But they were like, she looks petrified, which is actually really funny because I think that day, like, definitely, like, at Texon really wasn't myself. And I know you've known me for a while, but you could see, like, I was going through some stuff. November is always really hard for me. The holidays are hard because I didn't have a family. So I usually spend them alone. It's usually my biggest depression hit. This was the first year I actually spent with people, which was David's family. And he actually came to Texon because he knew, like, he wanted to be there because he knows how I am. But I was breaking down at one point. It was during one of the tastings, like the grand tasting, not the grand tasting, but one of like the walk around tastings in between the panels. Tasting. Yeah. And Mick Descamps looked at me and he was like, I'm here if you need me, because he could just see, like, he knew. And sadly, a lot of people, I had a lot of jobs, and they were like, you really need to cut down, like, you're overworking yourself and things. But what they didn't realize is on Tuesday, I will get my first check where I only have to work one job. to be a sommelier, and it was almost embarrassing to tell anybody what I made. But like I was making $27,000 a year to be the som of the restaurant I was working at, and then this year on my taxes from that restaurant, and this was like busting it, like begging for hours. COVID did a lot of damage. I only brought in 30,000. So in my mind, each day I was there, I was like, I need to pick up mixology classes. I need to bake cakes. I need to get cookie orders. Like I need to do something to pay the bills, because every day I was at TechSom was a day I wasn't getting paid at work. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to go home, and what is my paycheck going to look like? Because that's how I was living. That's how I've lived. And I think a lot of people, just from talking to them, are like, I can't believe that was your salary and that's what you made. Like, that's insane. Like, you were worth so much more. I never thought I was worth more. So I never went out there and tried to get more.
That's the tale of a lot of us in hospitality. Let's be clear here. A lot of us in hospitality are not making our worth. Some of us are fortunate enough to be able to work one job, but at the same token, we're always looking for more, side hustle, side gigs, anything else that we can do to kind of pad the income that we're already making. And a lot of times when we do special events, or when we get opportunities to get paid for what we do, we undervalue ourselves. And I think it's kind of a gift and a curse, because we're so awesome at this hospitality thing and being great with people and being professional and doing these awesome things when we're in spaces. But then at the same token, we're like, man, just give me what you got. And it's like, wait a minute, you're worth so much more. There's a lot of folks at TechSom that were talking to me about, really valuing yourself appropriately. And it's really about the work that you've done, right? Think about all that you've done, the work that you've done to get to where you are. And then you go do a job, and we're a lot of times like, you're paying me for my time. You're actually not paying for the time. You're paying for the value of the work that you're doing, right? You've been in this business, you said, since 2016, right? So it's 2022 now. So you're paying for 6 years of experience and expertise to do a job in 1 hour. You're not paying for the hour. You're paying for 6 years plus this hour. Mm-hmm. So give me what I'm worth, right? And that's, I think, the way that we should think about moving forward. When we spoke at SomCon, we were talking about rising in a small market. A lot of times in our small markets, we don't feel like we're worth, what someone from a large market is actually worth, right? Tell me this. I know you've gotten opportunities to work outside the market. What motivates you to stay here in Mississippi and keep doing it?
Well, I've always been a very loyal person, which is why, I loved the restaurant I worked at, which is why I didn't mind, not making much, because I knew, where I'm at, they couldn't afford to pay me more. It is the market that I'm in, especially like my micro market. There wasn't a need for a som, but they made a position. So I've always been very grateful for that. But I think a lot of moving, I was afraid to move. If I'm being honest, a lot of it was like the fear. I don't like change. And then the not thinking I was good enough, but then thinking about what I had built and created in my area of Mississippi, and not wanting that to go away. I didn't want my program that I had built to just go away into nothing. I wanted to see our state be successful. Yep. And it was one of the things that always made me so mad when, I got offered some very high-end jobs.
All the time. Every month, the inbox is full.
It's like, I can't even sit here and be mad at taking the salary I took, because, I was one person then on a $30,000 salary. And I worked all the time, so I didn't really mind it, but turning down $100,000 a year always hurts. It hurts all the time. But then I think about how much I just love Mississippi and how I did. And I was offered a $100,000 job in Mississippi, and I turned it down. Just because I loved the people that came into the restaurant. I loved who they were. I really thought when I was at the restaurant, because I had been there for like almost 10 years, that we were all a family. Which when you leave, you kind of find out that maybe not. You know, you just they kind of move on. They keep moving. Like,
Yeah.
the restaurant keeps going.
Yeah. We touched on a couple of things there, but to what you said about not taking opportunities and positions, right, that will easily pay you more, but because you got work to do where you are, right? That's called passion, right? You all have this passion for what we do, and it's really defined. And so when we have that passion for what we do, we're like, you know what? I got to keep doing this work. As much as I would say, oh man, it'd be great if I could go make this money somewhere else, you'd be like, man, it'd suck if I just had to drop everything I've got going on here, because what happens to everything that I'm building, right? That would hurt more than the joys of earning the money that you deserve to be more than enough.
And when people who were even just your friends in this industry, it was one of the biggest things. They were always like, you need to move, you need to do this, because people knew how much I was making. Like,
I told you need to move down here. I said that to you too.
Yes, but then like all these other people, like, you need to go here, you can go here. Like, it was never about, they're like, you need to get out of Mississippi, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're not giving us a chance. And that's when I would get all fiery and angry. I'm like, you're not giving Mississippi a chance. Like, there are wine professionals here.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's what we're doing, Bobbie, right? So I'm so happy you're here to do this. For anybody who's just checking in, we're talking to Bobbie Burgess, and she's here talking about everything she has going on. We're talking mental health. We're talking hospitality professionals. We're talking about passion for wine and hospitality. We're talking about big things, and they're going on right here in the state of Mississippi. So thank you for locking in. I'm Chug Nix, the Bearded Wino. Look, Bobbie, you talked in that last little segment that we just spoke. We described it without saying it. We talked about imposter syndrome, not valuing yourself, not knowing your worth. We talked about all these things without actually saying it. Depression, anxiety. There was another one that you were describing, and I was like, oh man, that's what this is. And that's what a lot of therapy really kind of helps you to compartmentalize your thoughts and understand what you're going through. Man, I was going to ask you, why is it important to have these conversations? But I think we're having them, and it's really clear why it's important to help other people. Do you believe that what you do on the floor helps people more than just helping them have a better evening?
Yeah. Those people become your friends. Most of the people that came into our restaurant have my phone number. Like, we text, we talk. A lot of them became my family, and I think that's why I loved the restaurant much, is because I didn't have a family, and people, like, they would follow me on social media, people who dined in the restaurant, and they would, kind of become my family. So, I guess I kind of did. Even though I always say I don't have one, I really did have one. It was all these people who had come together to, it's just, when you share a glass of wine, you're doing more than that. When you give them experiences, they ask about your life, they ask about your school, they ask about your family, they ask if you have any kids. Like, they're getting to know you. Not all tables are like that, but a lot of guests are. And, that's what makes working in a restaurant such an amazing experience.
It's biggest one I'm going to. It's so rewarding to be able, to have somebody, listen to you and hear you and know you for more than just the person who's bringing you the beverage. I say this at almost every dinner that I host. Water separates people. Wine brings them together, because you do get to know people, right? You get more people in the room over a bottle of wine or a cocktail or a beverage. No one ever said, hey, come over, let's drink some water. No one ever says that. So I think that, our opportunities that we have to bring people together are great. And to have a passion to do that, I think it's noble. I think it's really, really noble what we're doing, and we're really proud of you. So it's Women's History Month, right? And you're kicking it off. And we're talking to someone who is absolutely writing history for the state of Mississippi. Let me ask you this. Did you think that when you got into this and you started to really kind of excel, did you think that you'd really be changing the course of history in Mississippi's beverage culture?
No. when I started posting on Instagram and stuff, it was because this was like months before I had met anybody in Jackson. Like, I didn't know anybody that was studying wine, and I had to start reaching out to people, and I made some really amazing and awesome connections online. Just because I didn't know. I was so like oblivious to what was going on because I mean, I'm 2 hours away from you. I'm in a tiny college town. And there was no one around here. I would go to Alabama to get most of my study wines. And then I kind of started going to Jackson. And then when I got to become the buyer at the restaurant, that's when I started meeting reps. That's when I started realizing that there were people in this town 2 hours away that were doing the same thing I was doing. And I'm like, well, where are they at? And so, like, I think me and Tiffany became friends on Facebook. And then she invited me to y'all's group. And I was like, holy Moses. Like, there's this whole, all these people are doing what I'm doing. I think at that time we had, like, what? There was you, me, Tiffany, Patrick, Alex.
Yep.
My friend Andrew came.
Yep.
We had a pretty solid group. And Sarah Faye.
And then Danielle
joined on.
Markeisha was there.
Yep.
It was a big old group, and it started growing, and now they're like everyone's kind of spread out doing their things. But we're the second generation in the Central Mississippi crew, Central Mississippi area to do it. Right, there was before us. There was like Scott Jackson and Leslie McCarty and Val Spelman's kind of like in between, right? John Melanchak, Kelly Boutwell. Oh my gosh. I can't wait for her to come back down and visit. There was this group before us. It was a really small group that was a handful of them. A lot of them came through Bravo, right? I did not even understand the history of that place till I got in the building. And then, here we come along, I guess maybe a decade later, and we've got all this energy. There's social media. And, we're a little bit younger. We're about their age when they were doing this thing, right? And we're just pushing the agenda. And we're really trying to grow this thing. I got to say, Bobbie, no matter where I travel, right? When I'm in Chicago, when I'm in Dallas, when I'm in DC, when I'm in Georgia, everywhere that I've traveled in the last 2 to 3 years, whoever I'm talking to, you know what they always ask me when they say, oh, you're from Mississippi? Do you know Bobbie? They all say this. They're like, do you know Bobbie? Wait, is it Barbara? Bobbie? Do you know her? I'm like, yeah, that's the homie. They're like, yo, she's dope. I'm like, I know. I'm like, I know, so you're making mad waves around the country from right here in Mississippi. So cheers to you. Look, and you are a woman doing this. We know we're in an industry that is dominated by white men. I'm a minority in this. You're a minority in this. We did mention a lot of women in Mississippi that are doing it. But outside of Mississippi, it's not a bunch of women doing it. And this month, we're going to be highlighting you all. But you guys are making a huge impact. And we have in the last about 2 years in the country started talking more about women and minorities doing these things. Let me ask you this. How do you think that this industry has truly improved as far as highlighting women and minorities?
Well, let's see. So I think that it's definitely like you're starting to see at conferences, we're having more of those talks about uplifting minorities, about talking about what happens to women in our industry, which, I mean, you've worked in a restaurant about as long as I have. Like, this has never been a secret. You hear it all the time. Your staff goes out, and I that was one of the things I wanted to do when I worked, was to make a safe environment for my staff to come to me if something had happened to them, because as women it happens all the time. And they compartmentalize it. They say, well, maybe if I was sober, like all these things, they make excuses for what goes on. And I try to tell them, like, no, what happened to you isn't right. We can sit here and say what happened, and every woman on this call or that's watching this knows exactly what I'm saying without saying it, because almost every woman has a story like mine. Maybe not the same situation, but they almost all got a story like mine in some way. Even just the sexual harassment in restaurants, from guests, from whoever, especially in college bars, like college bartenders who are female, my heart goes out to them. I did it for a while, and I was like, this is not for me, because I'm the type of person at this stage of my life, if a man puts their hands on me inappropriate, I'm stalking them in the face.
As they should be socked in the face.
Yeah, but a lot of women,
They
in our
should.
industry would just let it happen, and you really saw it with the beer industry recently too. They got wrecked. All these women in the craft beer industry came out and they were like, this is what happens. I mean, it's terrible and it's disgusting, but when we break into what happens to our servers, what happens to our female bartenders, like it gets even deeper. So having those conversations and continuing to have those conversations is the most important thing. I hope they continue that. But then also it was the realization that people thought there weren't that many women in this industry. We'll talk about winemakers. And then, France came out and they're like, we have over 12,000 female winemakers.
Yep.
I was doing a wine every March. I would do wines only made by women. And I would do little tastings. And I remember this woman's husband was like, oh, that's not for me, but she'll take it. I don't, just trying to be funny, like, because he's from the South and he thinks he's got humor, but he really doesn't. He's being misogynistic. And so he orders a bottle of Jordan. And I'm like, little does he know, Jordan is now made by a female.
Right. Well, look, the women are pulling much weight in the game right now. And we don't understand it. We don't pay attention to it. But I think that the thing is, like for me as a black man in this business, in hospitality, I didn't think about getting into wine seriously. I was in hospitality before, didn't think about getting into wine until I saw another black som doing it. And I said, okay, let me see what's up. This is why representation is important. You just told me that Jordan has a female winemaker, but he didn't know that. It's important that the women are shined a light upon, because there's the standard of white men being the ones in place and having the power. So if we think about a major brand or we think about anything credible, we automatically assume white man. We don't think woman or minority that could be in place. It's important that we highlight exactly who is there. Who is there? No matter who it is, but we got to talk about who it is. And that's what's important. I think that's how I think it can improve more if we see more representation. That was my next question. How do you think we can improve more as far as advancing the agenda on highlighting more women in the business?
Opportunities, giving opportunities, and not just to people with the biggest names that not just to the most vocal, but reaching in there and finding the ones you don't know. Those women who maybe you don't see them on Instagram as often, those little baby soms who need that push. Because if it hadn't been for the people that had reached out to me from the Som movies, or, like those people when I was early on in my career, or the people who, Christy Norman, when I would talk to her, like I probably wouldn't have kept going. Yeah, she's amazing. But if those people hadn't been like, this girl in Mississippi is doing something really cool, I'm going to talk to her. And when I had a question, would answer it, or when I was feeling down, would build me up. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today, because a lot of that was going on before I had even met y'all. Like, I didn't know anybody. But that is my goal as a som, is to reach out and find people. And, there's not that many women in our industry as sommeliers. Now, winemakers, you're seeing a lot more women. But I really realized how few female soms there were when I started dating David. His brother-in-law, Brian, who is a catering company I now work for, has a niece who is a som. They're like, oh yeah, I have a niece with a som. And he's like, yeah, I have a cousin. She's kind of my cousin who's a som. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, right? Because she lived in Colorado, and I knew that Brian used to live in New York. So I wasn't like connecting the two. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So me and David go official on Facebook, and Christina messages me and comments on the post. She's like, oh my God, you're dating my cousin. And I'm like, and she messages, he's like, how do you know her? And she was like, everybody in this industry knows who she is. And I'm like, there's just not that many women. And there's not. I was like, everybody in this industry knows Christina as well. Like, there's just not that many women. And that's how small this industry is, because she lives in Colorado. We're in Mississippi. They're originally from New York. And somehow my friend, who I have sometimes tried to start studying with, is my now fiance's cousin.
Look, man, that's what I mean. Wine bringing people together. That's exactly what I talk about all the time. It really puts people together. I experienced the same thing trying to figure out, where are all the black people, right? It's the same situation. Then you look up and you talk to one, and then the dots get connected, and like, oh, there's a whole community of us. I love what we're doing in Mississippi because our group is not, our tasting and study group is not just more women. Well, it is more women, but it's not just one or two of underrepresented demographics, right? We've got people in our group, LGBTQ community, women, minorities, and it's this really cool, melting pot, if you will, of people that are all about professionalism and hospitality and wine business in its finest expression. I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of you. I really hate that I missed your conversation about an evolved wine list at Texom, but help me out just a little bit. Give me like a little bit of an update. What makes a wine list more evolved?
So some of the things that we had talked about was with like my own program. I like to I like to pour the weird and the strange things,
Yeah.
I like to make it fun. I like to find ways to sell wines that normally in my market you couldn't. And so we kind of talked about those things, how you sell wine in underrepresented markets. We switched to a tablet at the end. We didn't have paper menus anymore. We had huge iPads that we gave out, and you scroll and you press and you move. And what that did for me, we kind of talked about running a program as well, was that if I ran out of something, I could get on my phone, or I could run to the office computer and I could take it away, and it was like it was never on the list. So I didn't have a problem of us not having something on the list, because during service you can't reprint,
right?
In the middle of service it's impossible. So just one click of a button and it was off, it was gone. And then we talked about, man, it's been so long ago.
It's okay. No, but technology is a big deal. We need more of that, I think, on dining room floors. I mean, I struggle with printing on a wine list that hasn't changed so much, especially with our state ABC. There's so many logistical challenges. Yeah, you feel it like I feel it.
That's been the biggest part of transitioning out of the restaurant is I've had, the management that has chosen to take over now, which, just to mention on you talking about minorities earlier in Mississippi, almost every single wine program in our state is run by a minority. Like if you want to come to a diverse market and you want to research a market, this is the one. Like maybe one wine program is ran by a white man, like maybe one that I can think of.
Yeah. I didn't think about that, Bobbie.
Because even the other Som in my state, like in my city, is LGBTQ. He may be a white man, but he's a minority because of, know.
Yeah. No. Wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. If you want to come to a diverse market, it's Mississippi. You want to come research what we've got going on here. Like, to me, this is it. We have the most diverse group of wine professionals in the entire country, and I will die on that hill. But to get back to like the ABC, like the hardest part of me transitioning out of the restaurant has been them constantly thinking that I'm putting in orders. And I'm like, I promise you, like, I don't have time to put in orders. I'm not talking to anybody put in orders.
It's the backlog.
Yes. And what's happening is, like when something almost ships and then it doesn't because it gets to the ABC warehouse and they fill someone else's order, they cancel it and they re-put it in. So they think that I'm putting these orders in. Like they messaged me 2 days ago, like, we need to quit putting orders in. I'm like, I don't even know the passcodes because y'all changed them. Like, I promise I'm not doing this. Like, it's what I told you was going to happen. If it runs out and they don't have the product, it's out of stocks, they re-put the order in. It's not me. It's not the reps. It's just listen, ABC. Linda.
It's the ABC. Look, no, the same thing happened to me. So my journey a little bit. So I left like one restaurant, and then I went to do the package store in the Delta, and then I'm back in the central area running another restaurant in the program. I know for a good portion of Q4 last year in O&D, and for those that don't know, fourth quarter, October, November, December is what I just said. In the fourth quarter of the year, the restaurant that I worked for in Q3 was calling me like, hey, this stuff came in. Did you do this, or what do you know about it? I'm like, oh yeah, I ordered it like 5 months ago. I'm glad you're finally getting it. And then there's a lot of stuff that still just never made it. I mean, right now, I this past week, so I think maybe the month of February, I went almost the whole month getting maybe one delivery. And then in the last week, I got like 4 deliveries. And I was like, where did all this stuff come from? I didn't know I ordered this much wine or this particular one wine, but it was because I'd order it, wouldn't deliver, order it, wouldn't deliver, order it, wouldn't deliver. And then it delivers all 3 of those orders at one time. And so now I'm like, well, guess what's going on by the glass? All 9 of these cases, right? There's a challenge that we have to deal with as beverage directors and people that are in front of buying. I know that we like to say that we'll have faith in our state and the ABC and getting it together. But I do kind of make a point in every one of these shows to say the ABC is killing us out here. Please, y'all, help us, help you, help us. We want to get this stuff in place. All right, that's my rant on the ABC. We're going to be moving off of that. Look, Bobbie, I have to talk about these same things with everybody because I think it really kind of gets people to know more about you. This is the fun part, all right, because we got hella deep in this. Look, for those of you who may be checking in late and just find out what we're doing, this is Monday Meditations with Juan. I'm talking to Bobbie Burgess, and we just had a crazy good conversation about mental health, about diversity in Mississippi, a little bit of a rant about the ABC and our own study groups and travel and so much more. Please be sure to comment in the bottom if you have something that you'd like to ask either one of us. We'll be sure to get back and respond. And this replay will come out on Instagram, on Facebook, and in podcasts on audio, Apple or Spotify. Just search Bearded Wino. All right, look, Bobbie, if you could share a bottle with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I think that's an easy one for me. I would probably pour a bottle of champagne with Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, indeed.
Marilyn Monroe loved champagne. We lived a very similar life, the childhood trauma. They suspect that today she would have been diagnosed with the same mental illness that I have, which is borderline personality disorder, which is caused by childhood trauma. So I would share that with her and, just remind her that she lived an incredible life, even though she doesn't realize all the amazing things that she did. Sometimes in the last few months, I've looked back and been like, especially when I was leaving the restaurant, I was like, wow, look at all the things I did. And I never felt worthy. Everything that Marilyn Monroe did, she never felt worthy. But the last thing that she did, she had been fired from a movie. They had rehired her. And she finally made what she deserved to make. She was an underpaid actress. She was one of the best actresses of her time. And she was the first woman of her time to own her actual own production company. She was tired of being underpaid, so she went and made her own. She actually died the week that she was supposed to start refilming for this movie. She never ended up getting paid what she was worth. But she did re-sign the contract to get paid what she was worth. So had she lived, she finally, everything she had wanted would have happened. So I would have shared a bottle of champagne with her. And she was loved. That a lot of people did love her. And just hug her because I think she was a lot like me. And she longed for a family. And she didn't have one. And going into my now current life, getting ready to get married. I'm getting married next year in March 5th. And having a family. I'm so excited. But having this family and navigating this new life, it's like everything that I've been working for the past few years has come into place. And I do personally think a lot of that, I know other people have different religious beliefs. I think a lot of that has to do with God and his plan. And sometimes you need to go through things to help others. And, believing in him, he's always taken care of me. I have the man of my dreams who I've always wanted. I have an amazing family. His family loves me. And it's everything I've dreamed of my whole life. So, I went from having a restaurant family to having a real family.
That is awesome. Bobbie, that's great. You do this to me every time. Every time we talk. That's awesome. Look, let me ask you this. What grape or variety or style of wine best describes you?
Ooh. I would say vintage for sure. Vintage rosé champagne. A lot of people don't think you should decant your wine, your bubbles, but I think that I can be bubbly, but I also think that I can be very muted, and sometimes you need to decant rosé champagne, especially vintage, to back up. I think that's me. I think sometimes I'm very closed off, but put in the right environment and given the right opportunities, I can shine, just like vintage rosé champagne.
Oh, you just educated a whole lot of folks with that one. You just hit them up real good with that one. I like it, Bobbie. I like where we're going. Let me see. What's your unicorn bottle? If you could drink this bottle of wine, you could die happy. What would it be?
Honestly, it would probably be any of the Champagne Charlie. You know, they don't make that cuvee anymore. I think it's the Champagne Charlie. They don't make
No,
Charlie
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, 85 discontinued. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So I love Heidsieck wines. I love Charles Heidsieck. I love Piper Heidsieck. I love the Charles Heidsieck story. So that would be it.
And you're right. He's got a great story here in our country and in France. He's got a great story that involves Abe Lincoln. Shout out to Philippe Andre. Got to make sure we say what's up to you, my guy. I can't wait to get back with you sooner than later. We'll get you on Monday Meditation sooner than later. Dang, that's a good bottle too. Oh, that's a good bottle. All right, look, Bobbie, you got $20. What bottle of wine you going to buy? Boom.
$19.99 on the shelf in Mississippi. Everywhere else, it's usually $16.99 to $19.99 as well. If I have $20, that's what I'm getting. I mean, their champagne's fantastic. What they're doing in California, their sparkling wine is, you know, I'm a Schramsberg lover, but Schramsberg still hits a little bit above my daily price point. So $20, I'm going Piper Sonoma. Made by the Heidsieck.
If you haven't caught on by now, Bobbie loves the bubbles. So let's keep it sparkling, all right? Let me ask you this, Bobbie. I think we talked about it a little bit, but if you were not in the wine industry today, what would you be doing?
Well, I should say baking. But I had a bakery before I got in the wine industry. And
I still haven't got my cupcakes.
I know. I'll make you some, though. Don't worry. We got to come to Jackson April 4th, so I'll bring cupcakes. But, yeah, I would say baking. Probably cooking. I wanted to go to culinary school, and my adopted family told me to get a real job, which, I mean, I worked in the restaurant industry since I was 14, still in the restaurant industry.
It's real.
I mean, chefs, one thing that my adopted grandfather always said, there are two businesses that are always going to operate no matter what happens: the food industry and the drink industry. Why? Because people got to eat and people want to drink. So if you're going to get a career, he was the only person that was like hospitality, because people are always going to eat, and they're always, not everybody, but most people are always going to want to drink.
Hey, Bobbie, your story is amazing. Your stories are amazing. I'm so happy you took the time out to talk to me. Look, I know you're going to come back and talk to me some more, either on this platform or on the Last Call platform. And there's an opportunity for me to come back and talk to you on Uncorked on WCBI in Starkville. Yes. And I'm happy that you're still doing that show, because the state needs that. They need more of this kind of connection and outreach into what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So love everything you're doing. Bobbie, what did I miss? Did we get everything? Did we get it all? I think we got it all. We got to get you back to Texas. That's a great trip for us every year.
I love it.
It's an amazing trip. All right. Well, look, we got more to talk about. I'm going to go get back on the grill. You're going to finish the bubbles. Thank you, Bobbie. Where can the people find you? Social media. Where can they get with you?
On Instagram and Twitter, my name, my hash, or my little @ is @the_pinup_psalm. So
yeah,
that's it.
Y'all check in with the Pinup Psalm on Instagram and on Twitter. We're gonna have those mentions listed on Facebook. So check the title and the description on that. Look, thank y'all for joining us for another Monday Meditations. I'm gonna finish the Beaujolais. I'm gonna go outside, get back on the grill, kick it with the family. Enjoy your Sunday. Bobbie, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll see you soon, love. Bye.
Bye.